But as you heard in Eyewitness News, the Secretary to Parliament will receive that list of 400 names that will be sworn in as MPs on the 17th of June. The first sitting of the 7th Parliament is to elect a Speaker, Deputy Speaker, and a President of the Republic of South Africa. But quite a lot happening around that announcement of the lists being handed over to Parliament. One of them being Zizi Kodwa, now former Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, resigning yesterday as Minister because yesterday he was charged with corruption and appeared in court. Lindsay Dentlinger of the Eyewitness News team. Good morning, Lindsay. Really appreciate your time. Zizi Kodwa, he resigned as Minister, but is also number 25 on the ANC's national list. I checked through the list yesterday and I see that Nkadiso Goodenough Kodwa is on that list. Is there any clarity on whether he'll observe the ANC's step aside rule or will he be sworn in as an MP on the 17th?
Good morning, Lester. Well, that remains to be seen. The ANC always says being charged is not the same as being found guilty of an offence, and we've seen MPs, for example, Bongani Bongo in this past Parliament. He was a chairperson of a Home Affairs Committee. He faced two sets of corruption charges in two different courts, and the step-aside policy only meant that he couldn't continue to be the chairperson of the committee, but he continued to serve as an MP until last week. He's not on the list, incidentally, to return. So technically, I would think that Zizi Kodwa would still be able to be sworn in as an MP in 2 weeks' time. But with him having resigned as a minister, we don't know if that means he is taking these charges more seriously and whether he would not then stand to be sworn in. But technically nothing precludes him from doing so. And I think it would come down to whether the ANC tells him it's not a good idea to do so. But then incidentally, Lester, on that list, you would have seen people like Cedric Froelich, who were also implicated in the state capture report. We have a comeback from somebody like Malusi Gigaba, who left under a cloud in 2018, I think it was. We have Dina Pule. All of them faced tender-related corruption charges, and certainly those two former ministers are set to make a comeback next week. So I think it's going to come down to a crisis of conscience for Zizi Kodwa, whether he steps up or not to be sworn in.
There's also some of the names on the ANC's list, not the parliamentary list, but the ANC's candidate list of people who will not make it back because the ANC has lost 71 seats in the National Assembly on the national to national list. People like Beki Cele is number 79 on the ANC's list. He doesn't make the cut. Neither did Naledi Pandor at number 86 or Thandi Modise at number 83 on the ANC's list. And whether or not, there's still no clarity on whether Naledi Pandor officially announced her retirement from politics, also whether Thandi Modise did the same. But currently, if they did not, they would not make it back to Parliament simply because they're not high enough on the ANC's list.
Yes, listen, look, for example, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, she was one of those who made it very clear from the onset, and Pravin Gordhan, they were not going to make a return. Naledi Pandor, my last recollection is that she didn't say unequivocally she wouldn't return. She was asked that question late last year at a press conference, and she's used the standard refrain we hear from many stalwarts: if the party wants me to serve, I'll be there. And you'll remember there was a time in the run-up to the election campaign that she was even being considered as the face to be the premier of this province in the Western Cape, as the ANC so desperately looked to shore up support before the elections. They don't always name premier candidates. There was even an event called Leicester, and then it was cancelled 2 hours later, never happened again, where they were going to announce a premier candidate for this province. And it appeared that it was going to be Naledi Pandor because of the face that she's had, the ICJ case, South Africa's genocide case before the ICJ, and really the support that they believe that she was garnering among the Muslim community. So that is going to be a major blow. But just on a parliamentary level, Lester, you will know the big roles, for example, somebody like Bulelani Mangwenishe has played in the Justice Committee, a very, very important committee of Parliament. Cyril Make of the Intelligence Committee also presided over the appointment of a new public protector. They are also not going to make a return. So at a parliamentary level, at a committee level, it's also going to be felt there where old hands are not going to return, and not just at a ministerial level.
From other political parties, Action SA announcing that Herman Mashaba and that party's national chairperson, Michael Beaumont, they will not be taking up seats in the National Assembly.
No, they won't, Lester. In fact, we're going to see Athol Trollip, who once upon a time was in charge of the DA caucus in Parliament. He's going to take charge of the Action SA benches, and also another return, obviously, with Build One South Africa, having garnered 2 seats. Musi Maimane is going to make a return to Parliament in leading these new political parties that have sprung up. And of course, somebody as controversial as Gayton McKenzie, he remains top of the list. One would think maybe he would step back. We didn't see him last too long as a mayor, that he wouldn't maybe be interested in coming to Parliament, but he certainly is. And then, of course, right here from the Western Cape, outspoken Coloured Congress leader Fadil Adams is going to be trading the City of Cape Town seat to come to Parliament. So in those new opposition benches, some new faces, some excited faces to juxtapose the ANC having lost many of its old parliamentarians.
And the MK party seems itself to be in organizational chaos because the current suspended leader or the registered leader of the party, Jabulani Khumalo, despite his legal battle of who in fact is in charge of the party, suspended by the MK, he is still currently number 1 on the MK's list, and he will be entitled to be sworn in as an MP, despite the current case between himself and his erstwhile party. Lindsay?
Yes, Alessa. So these are going to be some of the things we're going to see play out, because once those lists are handed to the Secretary to Parliament today, it will then, as we see in the normal course of business, when parties kick out certain members or when they recall them, they will have to then resign to Parliament. We know this battle with Jabulani Khumalo and the MK party is playing itself out in court, but he's very much top of the list, and nothing at this point precludes him from standing to become an MP. And we've seen this in the past play out with battles, for example, with the PAC, but he will actually then have to resign to Parliament. And Lester, more importantly, is that technically political parties are not allowed to tinker with the list for the next 12 months. So the people that are on the list are the people that are on the list. You are allowed to add more members from the bottom. You can supplement your list. But you're not allowed to change the order of the list. And we've seen in the past where miraculously Brian Molefe, remember that, Lester, when he just got parachuted into Parliament and we couldn't quite figure out how that happened. You know, there are a lot of political maneuverings between the regional list and the national list, and somehow, somewhere, somebody pops up that you don't expect. But technically, no changes can be made to the list. And so people who are on that list, if the party no longer wants them or they get booted out, they will have to resign to Parliament, and then the next person in the pecking order then gets to take that spot. And technically, nobody is allowed to be parachuted in who does not appear in that order on the list.
Lindsay Dentlinger, the Eyewitness News Parliamentary team, thanks so much for your time.